Well, welcome. Welcome to Biomechanics of Endurance Performance. I'm Dr. John Mercer, and we will be spending a semester together talking about biomechanics as applied to endurance performance. So you're registered either for KIN 456, that's the undergrad portion of this class, or KIN 656, the graduate portion. So thanks for registering, and let's talk a little bit about what this class is going to cover. So I'll just go give you the big picture view of what we're going to do this semester. So biomechanics, what is it? Well, you should have had KIN 346, undergraduate biomechanics, so you should have a really good understanding of biomechanics at this stage. And biomechanics means lots of different things to different people, but it typically has to do with measurement, instruments, physics, and what have you. And so these are just different pictures of different biomechanical aspects of of some type of analysis. So biomechanics, what is it? Well, people often think it's technique. Maybe it has something to do with forces, movement, kinematics, has some math, some physics, and so forth. And this is true. This is what biomechanics has, all of these things. And we'll need to talk about these things throughout the semester. Now, what's the definition of biomechanics? Well, this is the fancy definition, a science which investigates motion and the action of forces, internal and external, including statics, dynamics, kinematics, and kinetics that occur during the actions performed by a living organism, for example, a human being. And we will focus on humans in this class. Now, I have colleagues that actually do biomechanics of animal movement, but in this class, we will be talking about the humans. So that's the fancy definition, but really, I always just like to say that biomechanics is the physics of sport. For this semester, our sport that we're going to be talking about is endurance events. Okay, so we're going to apply biomechanical concepts and the tools that you learned in undergraduate biomechanics, we're going to apply it to endurance events. So what is endurance? Well, here's just an easy definition from Taber's Medical Dictionary for endurance: the ability to withstand extraordinary mental or physical stress for a prolonged period. Hopefully that's not, watching these videos is not an endurance event and stressful. They should hopefully be fun. Or if we look up another definition of endurance, the ability to continue despite pain, fatigue, or stress. Right. So we're going to focus on iron distance events, marathons, ultra runs, maybe even long distance swims, maybe a 10K swim, or maybe even long distance cycling events. We're gonna talk about these long events. So Ironman is a brand. There are other brands of iron distance events like Challenge or Outlaw. Those are brands of iron distance events. Iron distance events are events where someone will swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and then run 26.2 miles all on the same day. Now, a marathon is 26.2 miles. An ultra marathon is anything longer than that. So typically something like 30 miles, or maybe you'll see things like a 50K or a 100K or 100-mile run. Those are all ultra runs. Marathons, obviously 26.2. And we're, for what this class, conceivably, we're really going to be talking about all different distances. Sprint, Olympic half, these are all endurance events. 5K is even an endurance event. But I do really tend to talk about these longer iron distance events because they're really a challenge. And there's athletes who will do these in sub 8 hours. The professional men will go under 8 hours, which is just phenomenal. Females will be under 8:30, and that is just amazing. 8 hours and 30 minutes to do all of these distances. Mere mortals, if you can do the event in 10 hours, that's really fantastic. 12 hours, really, really good. For most events, they'll limit people to 17 hours to complete these events. 17 hours. That means if you started at 7 a.m. this morning exercising, you couldn't stop exercising, or you wouldn't stop exercising until midnight, 17 hours. That's a long time. And those people who complete the event in 17 hours are really phenomenal. And we're going to talk about that. And so I like to talk about the mere mortals versus the elite athletes. And a lot of times we're actually trying to help the mere mortals. I'll show some videos throughout the semester on different iron distance events, but just go to YouTube and go to YouTube and YouTube search for Ironman, and well, probably Ironman Triathlon, so you don't get to the movie series, but Ironman Triathlon, and just take a look at some different triathlon events and get a sense of what these are. Hopefully some of you have done these events, or maybe you want to do an event, and that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. Okay, so what is this course about? Well, we are going to apply biomechanical concepts to understand endurance performance. So it's critical that you know terminology. What we will do is talk about how to apply that terminology correctly. And in this case, apply it to endurance performance. This course is not a math course. We'll do some math, but not a lot of math. This course is not a physics course, but we will do some physics. And we'll talk about forces. We'll talk about free body diagrams. We'll talk about equations. We need to know those in order to understand how to help athletes complete these endurance events. So by the end of the semester, well, really by the beginning of the semester, you surely know the definitions of biomechanical terms. So make sure you go back and look at a terminology worksheet. I posted that in Canvas, and make sure that you can define everything. You know the equations, you know the units. We are going to focus on applying those terms to understand endurance performance. All right, why? Well, there's been a tremendous growth with endurance performance over the last decade, from people participating in marathons. Ironman has had a tremendous growth in the number of events that they hold, not only in the United States or North America, but worldwide. And these events are really neat to participate in for anywhere in the world. So there's lots of growth. That means lots of people are doing it. And they often need information from people like you and us who know something about exercise science and kinesiology to be able to help them with training, maybe with nutrition, maybe to prevent an injury or to rehab from an injury, or maybe they need information from us to help to select what type of wetsuit or what type of bike, helmet, what type of wheels they should select, or tires they should have, and then even what type of running shoes. And these are just pictures from different type of metrics that people will have from different devices that they wear, wearable technology, the GPS devices, the heart rate monitors, the accelerometers that they have. And they need people with expertise in understanding how to use these data to ultimately help them complete these events and maybe to compete in the events, maybe to go faster. So common questions that I often get from the community, from the endurance community, is what type of shoes should I buy? What intensity should I train at? Should I get a full sleeve or a Farmer John wetsuit? Do I need, and we'll talk about what those types of wetsuits are. Do I need a time trial bike, or do I need a road bike? Should I wear an aero helmet? These are all very common questions that people ask us. And it's really important that we have information or help them answer those questions so that they can complete their event as best as possible and achieve their goals. So how do you do that? How do you help? Well, you got to know your terminology. We got to know what power is and how we use this in cycling. We've got to know what the equation of power is. We got to know what the units of power is. We need to know what impact force is and how shoes influence impact force. We've got to understand drag force and how this is used to improve our cycling performance or swim performance as well, and even something like buoyancy force. So make sure you go and get this terminology worksheet and make sure you can complete it, knowing the definitions, knowing the equations, and knowing the units of each of the parameters on that list. And we'll expand that list a bit as well as we go through the semester. What can you do to do well in this class? Well, stay connected. You can go to my webpage. I've got this link in the syllabus. Stay connected with Canvas. I'll post material on a regular basis in there. I'll post assignments. Try to keep us on track to be engaged throughout the semester. What you want to avoid is saving everything to the last minute and trying to cram in all the information right before whatever exam we may be having. I really want to have you immerse yourself in this topic and apply biomechanics. And we'll do some things in our project where we are actually connecting with industry and trying to answer questions that industry partners may actually have. You can also stay connected by joining some Facebook pages. So you can join UNLV Biomechanics page, post things there periodically. I'm probably not as frequent a poster there, but also join endurance community pages like the Las Vegas Triathlon Club Facebook page. And you'll see people interact with each other and ask questions and different information that gets posted there to help people train for and complete triathlons. We're going to use this model quite a bit this semester. And this model sort of gives a big picture perspective of endurance performance. If you're in KIN 457 or 657, Physiology of Endurance Performance, I present this same slide because it's that important. And it's important that we are to understand where our focus will be for this class. So in this model, what this represents up at the top here is we have chemical energy in our body. That's our fats, our carbohydrates, our proteins. That's chemical. That's like fuel, just like fuel in a gas tank. That is energy is the capacity to do work. Work is applying a force over some distance from a mechanical perspective. So having chemical potential energy in the body, fats, carbohydrates, we have the potential to do work. Our body transforms chemical energy to mechanical energy. Mechanical energy, think of that as movement. Okay, that's equal to the amount of work that we're doing. So force times distance. And we'll talk about kinetic energy, energy due to movement, the capacity to do work due to movement. We're talking about potential energy, things like that. Where our body transforms the chemical energy to mechanical energy via the aerobic and the anaerobic energy pathways. If you're in Physiology of Endurance Performance, we'll be talking about those. Or if you've taken KIN 391, Exercise Physiology, you've gone through this as well. Now, I've got thermoregulation here because this transformation of energy from one form to another is not 100%. That is, if we have 100 units of chemical energy over here, we probably only get about 30 units of mechanical energy. Where's the rest of the energy go? Well, it usually goes off in heat. So that's why I've got thermoregulation here. So our body builds up heat during exercise. We know that because that's why we sweat. That's why we get hot while we exercise. If you're in 457, we'll focus on this part over here. And our chemical energy, we'll focus on carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, where that chemical energy is stored, and how to take fuel in or when to take fuel before, during, and after, what type of fuel to take in. This is all covered in 457. In our class, 456, Biomechanics of Endurance Performance, we're going to be over here, where we're going to be talking about propulsion forces, magnitude, direction, coordination of those forces between different muscles. We're going to be talking about movement drills for swimming, running, and biking, not necessarily from a drill perspective, but just why you do those drills because you're trying to learn a particular technique, and you're really trying to learn how to generate the right amount of force at the right moment in time for the right length of time as well. And you're trying to coordinate those forces from different muscles. And that's really what these drills are meant to do. We'll talk a lot about resistance forces to movement. And we'll talk a lot about drag force, especially during cycling and swimming, a little bit for running, but more so for cycling and swimming. And we'll spend some time talking about rolling resistance during cycling and slope resistance during cycling. We'll talk about the kinetic analyses of swim, bike, and run. And so we'll really be spending our time over here in Biomechanics of Endurance Performance. This middle column represents how to train this system to better transform chemical energy to mechanical energy. Maybe do that faster aerobically by using oxygen, or anaerobically, not using oxygen. The rate, how fast we transform energy from the chemical state to the mechanical state, that's power. So when we're talking about power, that really represents how fast we transform energy from one form to another. Now, you already know this. You know, if you have a light bulb that's a 60-watt light bulb, that is not as bright as a 100-watt light bulb. Okay, you already know that. What does that 100-watt light bulb and 60-watt light bulb, what does that wattage represent? That represents the transformation of electrical energy to light energy. So a 100-watt light bulb does that faster than a 60-watt light bulb, and therefore the 100-watt light bulb is brighter. Well, likewise, when we're biking, we typically use a power meter to measure power during cycling. And if we're pedaling at 200 watts, what that tells us is we're transforming chemical energy to mechanical energy at a rate of 200 watts. If we're going at a lower intensity, maybe 150 watts, we're transforming that chemical energy to mechanical energy at a lower rate. All right, so that's our biomechanics. That's how we're going to focus in on biomechanics. And we can't forget the physiology or even the motor control or the motor learning that needs to happen in order to do endurance performance. However, for this class, we will focus on the biomechanics, and then we'll try to pull in information from other areas in kinesiology, even nutrition and what have you. Now I've got this down here. This is important. Injury: too much, too soon, too fast. A lot of times when you make too many changes, change your equipment, you change your shoes, you don't change your shoes, you add too many mileage, you add too much force, you can ultimately get injured. And we'll talk about preventing injury, mechanisms of injury, and then even rehabilitation. And we even talk about different modalities for rehabilitation. Okay, so this is sort of a big picture, and we'll come back to this model through the semester, but it's good to start becoming familiar with it. So in this class, what we will actually do is really focus on the kinetics of the three sports. I'm not going to go through this right now, but you can look at this slide later on. And what's interesting is when I teach undergraduate biomechanics, I start by looking at kinematics of movement, and then I move to kinetics of movement. We do things exact opposite here in this class. We actually start with the kinetics because you've already been exposed to kinematics. And we try to understand the forces acting on the athlete, and then try to understand either how to improve or magnify certain forces or how to minimize certain forces, especially the resistance forces. So we'll go through swimming kinetics, and we'll look at the forces acting on the swimmer. Cycling kinetics, we'll look at the forces on the cycle, on the bike rider system, and then we'll do the same thing for running. Who are we trying to help? Oh, it'd be great if we had a conversation with elite athletes. And who knows, maybe we'll do some. I really love talking with different athletes, and even having sometimes some of them come in and talk to the class to give a perspective of their involvement with the sport. But in most cases, we will be dealing with the mere mortal. Maybe someone who was just trying to complete an event versus trying to win an age group or win the race overall. Maybe we're just trying to help someone cross the finish line. Or maybe we're just working with the middle of the packer, or maybe we are working with a top level age grouper. There's all different types of athletes that we can be working with, but we don't want to lose sight that we are not just focused on the elite athlete. We're not just trying to help someone get under 8 hours in an Ironman. There's very few people that can do that. The vast majority of athletes that we will work with will probably be doing an iron distance event in 10 to 13 hours. And those are the athletes that I'm really interested in helping. And I don't want to lose sight that this is fun. So maybe we do want to just help people who are going to dress up as Santa Claus and do a 5-mile run or what have you. So, or dress up as Elvis. Those are fun. Or do a group bike ride where you're not really interested in time per se. All right, expectations. Well, no terminology, no concepts, no definitions. Be an independent learner. This is remote delivery for this semester. I'll be posting material throughout the semester, but you need to keep up with the material, touch the class every day of the semester. It's 5 weeks for summer, 15 weeks for fall or spring, but try to do something with this class on a regular basis. Read, 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 read. Journals, books, and we'll talk about this throughout the semester. It's important to stay on top of reading, not just the readings that I post, but read other material that you find interesting. And be involved. Be involved with any research projects that we have going on. You can be a subject, you can assist, you can also volunteer at events. Be involved in the community, because the more that you do that, the better you understand the importance of knowing biomechanics and how that can help somebody complete an event. And if we do all this, at the end of the semester, you'll be crossing the finish line of the semester with a big smile, and hopefully you will have enjoyed the journey. I know this is the last class for a lot of you in your undergraduate degree, which is exciting, and hopefully you'll be excited when you do cross your finish line and earn your degree. But to get to this finish line, there's a lot of pain that happens during a race. And hopefully what we do isn't going to be painful this semester, and maybe it will be a lot of work. That's okay. And by putting that work in now, that finish line will have that much more meaning. Okay, thanks everybody.